In the far north of Scotland lies an island shaped by the wild Atlantic, where storms roll in from the ocean with nothing to stop them. A place with no shop, no school, and only a handful of people who call it home. Its coastline has been carved by centuries of wind and waves into towering cliffs, deep sea caves, and blowholes that thunder with the tide.
A little bit scary.
This is Papa Stour, one of the most exposed places in the entire United Kingdom.
Papa Stour is an island that I have wanted to go to for such a long time because the coastal scenery there is meant to be some of the best in the UK. I'm going to head over there for a day trip and you need to reverse onto the ferry. Let's do this. I'd originally planned to just go over to Papa Stour as a foot passenger with the bicycle, but I believe there is a bit of a walk to get to the part of the island where you start the coastal walk. So to save time, and because I'm only going for a day trip, I can bring the van over. I just asked and they said there's space on the ferry for the van. So that'll hopefully mean I can make the most of my time on the island. It is time to reverse onto the ferry. Let's do this. This is the second time I have reversed onto a ferry. The last time was when I was on Orkney 2 years ago. Okay. Oh my god. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, survived.
The small ferry to Papa Stour departs from West Burgh on the west coast of Shetland's mainland. The crossing takes around 40 minutes, and my return ticket with the van cost £10.60. Papa Stour is home to just 7 residents, and the ferry only sails when bookings are made in advance, so you need to reserve ahead, and some trips are cancelled if no one books. The name Papa Stour comes from Old Norse and means the big island of priests, a reference to the Celtic missionary priests who once lived here.
We have arrived on Papa Stour. The good thing about reversing onto the ferry is that when you arrive, you just drive straight off. Okay, getting off. Oh my gosh, this is a bit scary. I thought the other guy was going to go first. Okay. Welcome to Papa Stour. I feel like maybe the van wasn't needed, but the difference in price was £2.50 or £10, so I just love going to these smaller and lesser visited islands. They have much more appeal to me than the really busy islands in Scotland. The first place you come to when you get onto the island is the ferry waiting room, and in here they have the stamp point here for the Scottish Islands. So this here is something you can do when you go around all the inhabited islands in Scotland. You can stamp and collect your Scottish Island passport stamps. Inside the waiting room here, they have tea and coffee available. There's a microwave. Oh wow, this is lovely. Here's some cards by Shetland artists. Map of the island. They also have here the leaflet about Papa Stour. So in Shetland, all the islands and different parts of the mainland have these fantastic information leaflets, and they share exactly all the best things to do, and there's also a map as well. And the map shows all the key places to visit. I think on a really rainy or windy day, this place would be so helpful and useful because you just want to get away from that cold weather. I might come back in here on my way back down later if I have time and have a cup of tea. Here's a list of all the birds that you can see on Papa Stour. Wow, so many different birds that you can spot here.
Papa Stour is home to ground nesting birds like ringed plovers and Arctic skuas. The island is also internationally recognised for its large summer colonies of Arctic terns.
Here, actually at the ferry waiting room, you can camp, I think on this area here, and then in the ferry waiting room there's also toilets. In the distance there's the ferry loading up, going to be heading back to the mainland. Beside the ferry waiting room there's a Starlink, look! I always recognise Starlink because I have one myself. I usually attach it to the roof of my van. I have a mount for the Starlink on the roof and I use that in remote parts of Scotland. It's so good. These are what look like standing stones. First places to see here on Papa Stour when you arrive is this here, and it is called a stofa, and to be honest this is the first ever time I have heard this word before. This is a Scandinavian building, and this is where wealthy Norse farmers lived centuries ago. There were excavations that took place here in the 70s and 80s, and they uncovered the remains of a house here, and it was all rebuilt, well, partially rebuilt, and this wood actually came from Norway. How amazing is that? I was reading on the plaque there that these stofas, although they were smaller, they were more comfortable to live in compared to the Viking longhouses. This site is also mentioned in the earliest written historical record in Shetland in the year 1299. That is crazy.
At that time and until the 17th century, Shetland was under Norwegian rule, and this estate belonged to Duke Hakon Hakonsson of Norway, a powerful noble connected to the Norwegian royal family. The record tells the story of a local woman who accused the Duke's representative of overcharging her rent for her farm. The dispute was serious enough that it was taken to Shetland's Old Norse Parliament, which met at Tingwall on the Shetland main island. It's an incredible glimpse into life here 800 years ago, showing that even then, people were dealing with landlords and rent disputes.
Now I can tick going inside a stofa off my life bucket list. My next stop here on the island is the kirk, and this was bought over by the community a few years ago, and they've spent years renovating it and turning it into a community centre and hub, and it only recently reopened, so let's go inside. So in the shop area when you first come in there's different things that you can buy at the honesty shop, cards. These are beautiful pictures of Shetland. Here's coasters and some decorated stones. There's some books as well. There's a toilet as well in there. Wow, so new. Almost looks like a sauna with all this wood. Then there is the main church, which is so nice. Definitely feels like it's currently been renovated because you can smell the fresh wood. Wow. They've done such a good job with it, and the stained glass window is the star of the show in here. On the back of the pews, they have these cushions, and these are all hand knitted. It looks like Fair Isle pattern almost, I'm not sure, but how nice are these? They also have a projector system up there, so maybe they do movie nights in here. The current kirk was built in 1806 and replaced an earlier church on the same site and a historic chapel further south. Inside is beautiful stained glass window by artist Victor Noble Rainbird commemorates the 6 men from Papa Stour who lost their lives in the First World War. It's believed to be the only surviving example of Rainbird's work. Some of the gravestones here on the ground, these ones here, are so old. So these would have been used as gravestones before they had the technology to carve stones and engrave them like these ones here. And on a lot of Scottish islands, you'll find these little markers instead of actual gravestones. So these could be from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. There's so many of them over there as well. Nobody alive now knows who these people are. But when they were alive, maybe they were the funniest person in the village or the community or the kindest person, but there's not even a name or a marker of who these people are. But it's not just here, it's all over. It's like this. It's just when time goes on, people die and we forget who those people are. And we'll all be forgotten too someday, probably. I don't know why I really like being in cemeteries or graveyards. It's like I have a connection to these people. They can't respond back, but maybe it sounds really weird. It's so weird. But these people, they're never going to harm you or hurt you compared to living people. They're just asleep peacefully. Okay. There is more of this island to explore, so let's go. In 1842, Papa Stour was home to 382 people. But as the fish curing industry became centralised in Lerwick and peat for fuel grew scarce, the population steadily declined, falling to around 100 by 1940. Today, only 7 people live on the island, where crofting and agriculture remain a way of life. Before we carry on, I'd like to say thanks to Beam for sponsoring today's video. In the evenings, I really enjoy having a lovely warm, hot drink, especially this time of year. But many of these hot drinks include artificial flavours and sugars. That's why I started drinking Beam Dream around 2 years ago now, and it's become part of my regular nighttime routine. My current favourite flavour is this one, the chocolate peanut butter. It is so yummy, it is nutty, it is chocolatey, and at the end of the day, it is the perfect treat. I usually make mine with oat milk, and not only does it have no artificial flavours or sugars, it's also vegan, keto friendly, and only contains 15 calories. I always struggle to turn my brain off at night. There always seems to be so many things running through my mind, but Dream helps me have a better night of sleep as well. It contains ingredients like reishi mushrooms and magnesium, which help support a better night of sleep. On the nights that I drink Beam, I feel like I fall asleep faster, and if I wake up during the night because of noise or wind, like I often do in the van, I feel like I can fall asleep again much quicker. If you're looking for a way to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling more energized, I definitely recommend giving Dream a try. You can click the link in the video description below. This will give you exclusive early access to Beam's Black Friday sale. If you use the code RuthAshling, you can get up to 50% off. This is Beam's biggest sale of the entire year, and I'm definitely going to be stocking up on all my favourite flavours. Now let's continue exploring the island. I have made it to the end of the road here on Papa Stour. I'm going to leave the van here. This is the runway. There used to be an airfield or operating flights here to the island, but they stopped in, I believe, 2020, which is a shame. So let's go and check out the airfield and then start the walk around the island and see some of this incredible coastal scenery. This here is the airport runway, so maybe you can see in the distance up there, that probably would have been the building for the people working here at the airfield and the fire trucks. And the airfield runs all the way along here. For the people that live here on the island, I wonder how they felt when the airfield stopped operating, because that would have been such a fantastic service to have, and then to lose it, it's pretty rubbish. But at least there is the ferry, obviously, but yeah, to go from having flights to not having flights, I'm not sure how that would feel. Last year I visited the Outskerries, which is Scotland's easternmost point, and it's at a small group of islands also in Shetland, and they also had an airstrip, and they used to have flights that went out there, but the reason it closed was because they didn't have anyone to operate the fire trucks on the island. So you need to have people who live on the island who are able to put out the fire and basically be trained in that for the airport. So maybe because the population here on Papa Stour has dropped, that's possibly why they closed the airport, because there was no one able to do the fire safety.
The airstrip was built in the 1970s and was used regularly for inter-island flights until it closed.
I was just walking along the runway, and look at these old lights. That doesn't look like it works now. So ahead of me there is a hill, and that is going to be where I'm going to head first. I have just been walking for a little bit past the runway, and the Isle of Fulla has come into view in the distance there. It has very dramatic sea cliffs, a lot of bird life out there, and it is a very remote island. You can get there from Shetland by plane or by a small ferry. Last year I spent a few days staying out on Fulla, and it was an extraordinary experience. I don't think I've ever been anywhere else like that in my life. It really does feel like you're on the edge of the world out there. And there is a bit of debate sometimes about whether Fulla or Fair Isle is the most remote inhabited island in the UK. And technically the correct answer is Fair Isle geographically, but Fulla has more of a sense of being remote and isolated because of the lack of facilities there, and then the smaller population as well. There's no shop on the Isle of Fulla. If you don't fancy going to Fulla yourself, you can check out the video and travel vicariously through the video, where I get dive bombed by great skuas known as bonksies, the very aggressive birds here in Shetland. Hopefully I don't come across any of them today. I think they do exist on this island as well. I have made it to the top of this point here, and I believe it's called Hill O'Feely. In this area here, they found some remains of Neolithic chambered cairns. And behind there are some huts which have a really interesting story. So I'm keen to go and have a look inside. You get great panoramic views over the whole of Papa Stour from this point here. So there is a big body of water, so I'll be making my way around there. And then onto that coastline over there, that's where some of the most spectacular scenery is on the island. Inside this hut here, it is said that suspected leprosy sufferers were sent here to live. What an isolated spot to live. And then Shetlanders would deliver them food nearby, and then they'd go and pick it up and then come back here. But there's debate about whether this story is true or not. And I read that now, these days, they suspect that the people living here maybe had malnutrition instead of leprosy. The views are nice from here, but I can imagine it'd be quite a tough life living out here with leprosy, feeling really ill. I hope there's no leprosy left here in the walls of this hut. If you don't see any more videos from me ever again, you'll know the reason why. Just been walking down the other side of the hill, and I've come across these walls here. So maybe this is where the leprosy sufferers lived, because that one hut up there is quite small. It doesn't really specify the exact point, so maybe it was here. I'm not sure. Here would appear more sheltered actually than up on top of the hill. It's so windy up there. As I was walking down the hill, I spotted something down by the water which looked quite interesting, so I'm going to take a closer look. These are round buildings down by the sea, and the smell of seaweed here is extremely intense. There's a stench of seaweed coming from the shore. On the grass here, there's these crabs. Look, I think otters eat crabs. I've come across this boat here, and it looks like it's still in use. It's not rotten or anything, but these gullies have been created for storing the boat. And then there's another one here behind. It is so beautiful here. I love going to places with no people. It's just the best. There's actually more in the ground here. So previously, maybe all of these were used as well, but these days it looks like only 2 are deep enough to be in use. Wow, it's fascinating seeing the evidence of past life here.
As I continued my walk, I passed one of Papa Stour's old meal roads. These roads were built during the mid-19th century, when poor harvests and the potato famine brought hardship to communities across Shetland. To provide employment and prevent starvation, local authorities organised relief schemes, where people built roads in return for rations of oatmeal or flour, giving rise to the name meal roads. On Papa Stour, 2 well-preserved stretches still survive today, once used by small carts and ponies.
I'm here at the end of Hamnavoe Bay, so I've walked the whole way round. It is just bliss. I am really enjoying the walk on this island, and the weather today was meant to be a bit mixed, but actually it's been perfect. It's a little bit windy. At the end of Hamnavoe Bay here are some water mills. And Dutch traders used to land their goods here, and there is a loch just behind, and it's called the Dutch Loch, named after the Dutch traders. They would bring water down from the loch to operate these water mills, and then it would feed into the sea. These water mills, they process things like barley and oats and turn them into flour. So this is the bottom of the watermill here. Wow. The area I am heading now is the part of the island which has the incredible coastline. So I'm looking forward to seeing the different rock formations along here. It is just so enjoyable traveling another island here in Shetland. I think some people think Shetland is just one place, but there's so many islands here to explore, and it's been so nice coming back again. Shetland was actually the first ever place I visited in my campervan over 2 years ago when I got it, and I think ever since my first trip here to Shetland, I fell in love with it on that trip, and then every time I come back I just fall in love with it more and more. It is such a special place. I love Shetland so much. Here is the first view of the scenic coastline. Look at that jaggy sea stack down there. So spiky. Over there, opposite me, is where I was earlier, where the leprosy people were living. I've walked all the way around that bay there called Hamnavoe. Down there on the rock, there are some birds. Don't know if you can see them. They look like shags. The black birds. I think I saw them on Lunga a few months ago. They have little Mohicans. They're very cute. This scenery. The water is so clear down there. So along this coastline, there are lots of caves as well, but obviously from up here you can't really see where the caves are. But it's a really popular place for going kayaking, but you need to be a very experienced kayaker to do the sea kayaking trips here.
The west coast of Papa Stour is among the most exposed stretches of coastline anywhere in the British Isles. The island is formed mostly from soft volcanic rock that dates back around 400 million years to when this area was part of a huge volcanic system. Because these rocks are relatively soft, the waves have eroded them into striking shapes, creating tunnels, blowholes, and natural arches.
I'm going to walk a little bit far away from the edge here because a little bit scary. My goodness, look at this. Wow, that is quite steep, isn't it? Oh, there's like a little beach down there, a little cove. Wow.
Over time, constant battering from Atlantic storms has carved out this rugged coastline, leaving behind some of the most spectacular geological formations in Shetland. Many parts of the coast are only accessible by boat, showing just how wild and untouched the landscape remains.
This one here behind me is not even the main one. I wonder if there are sea caves right under here. This is so cool. The scenery along here is something else. And I've just come around this here and there are some sea caves down there. They look so dark and scary. The water is going inside and crashing up against the walls. Wow, it feels so spooky here. And there's some clouds coming over now as well. Oh my gosh. Wow, that is scary. I think I've come across the most impressive one yet. This is like a bay inside here. It's really long. This rope goes all the way down to the bay. Would you go down? Let me know. I think if I had more time, I definitely would. But actually, maybe not because I'm on my own and I don't want it to break and I hurt myself. And then, yeah, there's not much phone signal on this island. Nice place to have a picnic down there though. I have made it to one of the most impressive sites here on Papa Stour. This is called Christian's Hall and it is a collapsed sea cave.
Kirsten Hall was formed over thousands of years by powerful Atlantic waves, forcing their way into cracks in the cliffs, gradually widening them into a full sea tunnel. The cave has a narrow entrance from the sea that opens into a vast chamber with light filtering through from above.
You can see here, this was the roof, or basically the land, and then that's the sea out there. And then this is the roof of the cave. And then this here is where the sea cave collapsed. And then you can see all the water down there and it extends all the way back there, all the way to the end there. Can you see? I don't know if it's possible to really see that because of the shadow, but down there you can see the sea cave and then the water coming in. That's so cool. It would be really fun to kayak through there, I think. The scenery along this coastline is seriously impressive. I've never seen anything like it with all these collapsed sea caves. They are magnificent. Wow, I've just walked down to the end of the final one now to see the water coming through. Wow.
Further along the coast, the scenery is just as dramatic, with steep cliffs and sea stacks rising from the waves. There's also a huge sea cave here, which is 330 metres long and is said to be one of the longest sea caves in the world. In the distance are the V Skerries, low, rocky reefs that look small from here, but their hidden shallows stretch much further and have caused many shipwrecks. In 1977, the fishing boat Eleanor Viking was blown onto the rocks and badly damaged, though thankfully the crew were rescued. The disaster led to the building of the lighthouse, which is still visible from Papa Stour today.
In the distance over there is the highest point there on Papa Stour. I did want to make it there, but not enough time on the island. I think on the Friday and Saturday day trips you get much more time on the island until 6 p.m. So if you do come, let me know if you make it out there to the highest point. I need to get a move on now, make it back to the van. I have quite a way to go to get back there, and I don't want to miss that ferry. Let's go. I have made it back to the camper van. I was pretty much running the whole way back, and I still have 39 minutes before the ferry departs. So I'm actually quite glad I brought the vehicle in the end. I probably could have just walked back to the ferry, but it is quite useful having the vehicle here because you don't have to walk all the way down that road, which I think is about 1.5 miles. But I have had such a good time here on this island. It has been amazing, and I'm so lucky with the weather. I really thought there'd be some rain today. I was really expecting rain and sunshine, but I think I managed to cover quite a bit of the island. And I'm so glad I made it over to the area where all the cliffs and all the impressive sea caves are, and the collapsed sea cave. That was just incredible to see. I'm going to head down to the ferry now, and I think sometimes they leave a bit early. If all the booked passengers are there, they will leave. So they told me on the phone when I booked that if you don't actually want to go on the ferry that you've booked on, you need to call and let them know, because otherwise they might be waiting for you. Time to reverse back onto the ferry.
I had such a wonderful day exploring this fascinating island. I hope you enjoyed discovering Papa Stour with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.